The newly formed Senate Pro-Life Caucus calls on President Donald Trump to ensure there will be pro-life protections in the House-passed spending bills. Montana Senator Steve Daines, founder of the Senate's Pro-Life Caucus, is circulating a letter among pro-life senators that asks the president to ensure any spending caps deals in Congress should be paired with a commitment from Democratic leadership to drop any riders that would erode pro-life protections. Some of those anti-life riders would include blocking the expanded Mexico City policy, blocking the Protect Life rule, and preventing an ethics advisory board from reviewing research involving human fetal tissue, among others. The letter, obtained by EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, says the pro-life senators would oppose each of these anti-life poison pill riders and will work to ensure they are not inserted into any appropriations bill before the Senate, either in committee or on the floor. Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma joins us now from Capitol Hill. Senator, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be back with you again.
What do you see as the role of the pro-life majority in the Senate in ensuring there are no anti-life riders in the House-passed spending bills?
So months ago, the Senate sent a letter to the White House saying we plan to be able to make a stand to be able to protect all pro-life language that's ever been in any appropriations bill, the Hyde Amendment, other amendments that have been consistent year after year after year to be able to protect life. We plan to be able to protect those, but we'd ask the White House to also say they'll veto anything if it does happen to get to them. The White House did respond and said, absolutely, we would veto it. We stepped up and said, absolutely, we will make sure that we protect those things that have been there year after year after year. We'll continue to do that. In fact, interestingly enough, the House of Representatives, when they were in the minority last session, demanded that the House function like the Senate did last year with no riders, no changes, everything consistent. Now suddenly that the Democrats are in the majority in the House, now they're saying, well, we want to do a bunch of riders and changes on it, not like what the Senate did. So we're going to ask the House to do it exactly what they asked for last time, and that was do simple, straightforward, protecting all life, all other issues, things the administration has done, not trying to overturn those in an appropriation bill, to be able to stay consistent with how we're doing appropriations and protect the gains that we've had.
Is there one pro-life achievement you see as especially important to protect? What are you keeping your eye on?
Well, we're keeping our eyes on all of them. I'm not willing to be able to give up on any of those things that we've had as standard basic American policy. We've had for years this basic principle that we have an argument about life, and I'm very clear that I believe life begins at conception. I think there's no doubt once the child has different DNA, they're different than the mom, different than the dad. That's a new human being that's there, and I think science backs that up. But for me, that's an essential part of it. But we've also agreed that we're not going to allow any kind of funding for abortion to come from the federal government. We also want to protect things like fetal tissue research and other things, or to be able to use the federal dollars to be able to harvest children that have been aborted. So all those things are basic. That's just an essential protection of life and the dignity of every human being.
Senator, why is this helpful for the president to know ahead of any negotiations with the House of Representatives?
Well, we want both the president to know, we want the leadership of the Senate to know where we're going to stand on it with a large majority of us, that they won't have enough people to be able to pass a bill if they include some of these riders or try to make changes in presidential policy on it. We want the president to be prepared to be able to veto it. We want our leadership to know that we're not prepared to pass anything like that. And we want the House to know as they sit down in negotiation, this is a non-starter with us. We can take the issues that we had last year, that we agreed to in a bipartisan fashion last year. We can do those same kind of bipartisan agreements this year, but we're not going to give on any of the issues, on any of the social issues, any of the kind of limitations on the administration, and most certainly not on the life issues.
On another pro-life topic, Planned Parenthood's board of directors unanimously decided to fire their president, Dr. Leana Wen, after only 8 months on the job. Dr. Wen claims it's because she did not prioritize abortion enough. What is your reaction to this news?
Yeah, Planned Parenthood came out in a pretty public statement saying they want to be more of a political organization and felt like that the new leadership of Planned Parenthood was taking in more of a healthcare direction. That is exactly opposite of what Planned Parenthood has said for years. And we've all known that they're a political action group, that they're trying to push the abortion agenda, that is their main function really is to be able to push that political message, but they always come and say, but we're a healthcare organization, we're just about health. When the new director comes in and says we're shifting us to be more of a healthcare director, within 8 months they fired her and they put in instead someone that's a political operative to be able to be the interim leadership. So it's clear what they really are trying to do. It's not to be a health organization, it's to be a political organization. And I hope that the American people can see it very clearly at this point.
And to that point, just to reiterate, Dr. Nguyen's departure does seem to reiterate that Planned Parenthood is not a health care provider, but truly an abortion group. So, Senator, is this an opportunity to renew efforts to defund Planned Parenthood?
So the defunding portion is actually going through several different segments here. Obviously, Joni Ernst and myself, we pushed through a piece 2 years ago to be able to deal with what happens with the funding that states get to choose. We made sure that that was allowed, and we defunded Planned Parenthood in all of those areas. We still have the Medicare, Medicaid portion that's out there. That part is something the administration is working through right now, and they've done an administration executive order, which now the courts have both supported, and said that if you're going to be a healthcare provider and you also are going to provide abortion, that has to be in 2 separate facilities. For Planned Parenthood on the whole and for other organizations, they've already stepped out and said we're not going to take federal funds if that's the rule on it, and we've said that's fine. We don't have a problem supporting true healthcare organizations. We just don't believe taking a life is actually healthcare.
Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And joining us now in studio for pro-life analysis is Autumn Christensen, the policy director for the Susan B. Anthony list. It's good to have you back, Autumn.
Thank you.
Can you put into context for us this effort to ensure there aren't anti-life riders in the appropriations bill? What's at stake here?
Sure. So every year, Congress is responsible for essentially writing the check to run the government, and that's the appropriations bills. And if those bills aren't passed, then the government shuts down. So it's not surprising that this is the place where Pelosi Democrats have decided to embed a whole host of anti-life policies that would really eviscerate the president's pro-life agenda. These are things like the Protect Life rule. They want to override the Protect Life rule and force funding for Planned Parenthood, force funding for fetal tissue research, funding for international organizations that promote abortion overseas. So there's a lot at stake here, a lot of really important policies that we've celebrated, and now we have to defend them in Congress.
What can President Trump and pro-life senators do to ensure these anti-life riders are not included?
Well, we are so thankful for the president's leadership, for Leader McCarthy and Leader McConnell in the House and the Senate, for Senator Daines with the Pro-Life Caucus, for the work that they've done to draw a line in the sand and say, we are not going to allow any of these anti-life amendments to make it through this process. And if they are continued to be included in the bills, that then senators will vote against those bills and the president will ultimately have the right to veto them. But we're very hopeful that that strong stance on their part will avoid us getting to the point of having to have a bill vetoed.
Autumn, you previously led the Congressional Pro-Life Caucus in the House of Representatives. Can you speak then to the significance of the Pro-Life Caucus in the Senate?
Sure. It is so exciting to see Senator Daines start the first ever pro-life caucus in the Senate. And a big part of that is that then he has that platform to be talking to his colleagues and promoting the pro-life agenda, making sure that pro-life policies are protected and that they are advanced. And then, of course, also keeping an eye on all those moving parts within the Senate and within the Congress to make sure that there are no bills that have hostile or negative implications for life that move through the Congress.
In other pro-life news, Planned Parenthood recently fired their president, Dr. Leana Wen, after only 8 months on the job, and they hope to replace a doctor now with more of a political advocate. So, Autumn, what does this mean then for pro-life political advocacy?
You know, it's really been an interesting series of events to witness. It seems like Leana Wen looked at Planned Parenthood's talking points, at the fact that they say that they're a women's health provider, and she said, well, okay, that's the kind of organization I want to be a part of, right? Then she entered into the job and was very quickly confronted with a abortion at all costs agenda. When she tried to deviate a little bit from that, they said, see you later, and replaced her with an abortion activist. So it tells us very clearly what a lot of us knew about Planned Parenthood, but paints a very clear picture of how aggressively attached to an abortion agenda they are.
Really helpful insight on all of this. Thank you so much, Autumn Christensen, Policy Director for the Susan B. Anthony list.
Thank you.
Thank you.